Talib. Mr. Talib, with regards to the Yemeni military, how would you foresee it acting and reacting if the position of Ali Abdullah Saleh is under threat?
The military in Yemen is controlled by Ali Abdullah Saleh and his two sons and his other nephews, and therefore I see whatever power they can have in the military in case things like that happen, things like what has happened in Egypt happens in Yemen. I think much of the military will actually, which is already quite demoralized by the war that happened in Al-Houthi. The last word I want to say is
very
this.
briefly, please, sir.
What the Arab Street is asking for, very quickly, what the Arab Street is asking for is really a government that is accountable. And I just want to finalize with the words of Lord Acton when he said, "Power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely." I think the people in all the Arab countries want an accountable
articulately put
government, and they want.
Sir, I'm going to have to interrupt you because we have run out of time.
Free from corruption.
Articulately put with those final words,
Yes.
Sa'aduddin Talib, Anas Qatish and Khalid Loom, thank you very much for joining us. And thank you, the viewer, for being with us. Remember, you can follow the show on Facebook and see what we're up to there. You can give us your feedback on the show and post your questions and comments. And on the next show, as the political standoff on the streets of Cairo continues, what is at stake for Israel, Egypt's closest ally in the region? Make sure to tune in for that. We'll see you next time.
He's taken stolen goods and he's now dumping them onto the world without any sort of consideration for consequences.
From people making the news.
If the North will be saved a lot of trouble, I think it is important that they should come together.
To those it affects.
We do accept that there was very bad mistakes made in our banking area.
Behind the headlines.
Most South Koreans are not interested in reunification.
Is the inside story. At this time on Al Jazeera.
As Washington's allies stumble, one after the other, exposed, losing control and influence, powerless in the face of the people's power, we ask, is this the dawn of a new Middle East empire at this time on Al Jazeera?
A popular uprising that shook the country to its core. A defiant president under siege from his people. As the protesters took charge of the streets, we look back at the events that are changing Egypt.
I will stay on the air if I can until the police come.
In a special program, Al Jazeera gives you a day-by-day account from those that witnessed them firsthand. Egypt burning, at this time on Al Jazeera.
Volunteer tourism is booming in Cambodia, with more and more foreigners helping out in the country's orphanages and schools. But with claims of mismanagement and corruption, are these projects doing more harm than good? 101 East at this time on Al Jazeera.
Standing their ground, more big demonstrations expected against Egypt's President Mubarak. Protesters are sticking to their original demands despite government promises of large pay rises for public workers. I'm Sami Zaidan. You're watching Al Jazeera live from Doha. Also coming up, let's clean this country up. The authorities free the Google executive they arrested for sparking the uprising. A sign of the chaos in Egypt, prisoners escape as police look on. Claiming the Moscow airport bombing, a Chechen rebel leader promises Russia a year of tears. And making progress, North and South Korea hold their first talks since November's deadly shelling. It's 0900 GMT, 11 a.m. in Egypt, where anti-Mubarak protesters are gearing up for another day of mass demonstrations. Well, these are the latest and, in fact, live pictures coming out of Tahrir Square, or Liberation Square in central Cairo, where the protests are now entering their third week. Well, despite government promises of a 15% pay rise for public employees, protesters are keeping up the pressure on the president to quit. Opposition groups say the government has given little ground in landmark talks aimed at seeking an end to the crisis. Well, the pro-democracy protests have so far lacked any single leader, but one man has emerged as a hero for many. Wael Ghanem is a Google executive whose use of social networking sites inspired thousands to take to the streets. Well, he was freed on Monday after being detained for 12 days. Al Jazeera's Imran Khan has the story.
January 27th, and a man is hauled away by what seemed to be security services. There's no way of confirming these pictures uploaded onto the internet, but they mark a moment Egypt's leaderless revolution found a hero. Wael Ghanem is a marketing manager for the internet search engine Google. His arrest sparked a campaign across the internet. Before his incarceration, he used social media sites to encourage and inform Egypt's pro-democracy protesters. For many, he was a digital icon. But then he simply disappeared into cyberspace. A prolific blogger, his writing just went offline. For 12 days, as Egypt roared with demonstrations, his friends, family and followers mounted an internet campaign with one simple message: "Where's Wael?" Then, on the 7th of February, he was released. Egyptian state TV, realizing his role and the huge internet campaign to get him released, made a big deal.
First of all, I send my condolences to all the people who were killed. It was a peaceful revolution. We didn't want to do any damage. Don't focus your cameras on me. I'm not a hero. The real heroes are the youth who are behind this revolution. By God's will, we're going to clean this country of this rubbish.
His words, once on the air, echoed through cyberspace. The news of his release welcomed by many. From Cairo, this man, using the microblogging site Twitter, said, "Welcome back, Wael." Even the US State Department spokesman PJ Crowley welcomed the news. Having been released in Egypt today, it's good to see Ghanem back online. Ghanem's experience encapsulates the nature of these protests, led by the people but driven by technology, a technology that seems to have caught the government off guard. Imran Khan, Al Jazeera.
Let's go live to our correspondent, Huda Abdelhamid, who's been overlooking Tahrir Square in the Egyptian capital. Huda, tell us a little bit about what's planned today and how it's being portrayed.
Well, today there was a call for a 1 million man march. It's still not clear whether that will happen or not, but I can tell you that for the past few hours there has been a steady flow of people making their way into the square. And it's actually very interesting because there's also groups of people who are coming together and coming into the square. And you get a feeling that really, at this point, any Egyptian who has any grievance about anything is just coming into Tahrir to voice their own opinion. So certainly a melting pot of Egyptians on this square. There's a very upbeat mood among the organizers because of the release of Wael Ghanem and because they are hoping that today will bring another day of success for them.
You talked about Wael Ghanem there. What are protesters doing to try and keep up the all-important momentum at this point?
Well, the protesters do realize that there is a risk that they start being accused of having organized some sort of a festival because there's a lot of music going on, there's different groups doing different things, so they sort of want to also keep the seriousness, if you want, of these protests. And since yesterday we've seen all around the square huge posters have been put there with pictures of the people who have been killed. Some pictures were extremely graphic, and this is sort of a way to remind the people who come on the square here that this is not a place to have fun. This is a place to launch a serious message. So it's really this continuous, I think, their way to counter the propaganda war, of the government. Now, I just want to show you the newspapers here. This is Al Ahram, the most pro-government newspaper in Egypt, and the main title today is about the attempts by the 25th of January revolutionary youth to form a coalition. Usually that main title for decades would have always been reserved to what either the government is doing or President Mubarak is doing. So certainly an acknowledgement at the government level that there is a revolution going on. Now, going on also to another government paper, this is Al-Akhbar. It says Egypt will return with a stronger after these protests. So another acknowledgement here that something very important is happening in the country, regardless of when President Mubarak leaves the country. And opposition newspapers or independent